Welcome on in. This is Three Bold Takes. It's Freddie, it's Chase, it's Quinn. Like always, we're giving you our biggest overreactions from this past week. And as always, and now, if you guys don't know, we're sponsored by SeatGeek. Use our code Three Bold Takes, $20 off your first ticket order. Guys, we absolutely love SeatGeek. Every time we go to a game together, we use it all the time. It's one of our best friends. So make sure you use SeatGeek. You get $20 free. Use code Three Bold Takes, guys. Don't be a geek. Buy a seat. Use our code Three Bold Takes. My overreaction this week. I just watched Clemson. I just watched Dabo Swinney. I just watched his team, and I've got to say, this might be the same team as Oregon that lost to Georgia in the first week of the 2022 season, got absolutely demolished, and went on and had an amazing season after. Now, Oregon, they did finish with a couple more losses, but I think I'm going to go a little step further here because we're Three Bold Takes, right? Clemson goes undefeated the rest of the way. Clemson goes undefeated the rest of the way in their competition. They don't have Miami on their schedule, which is a huge help. Let me get to their full schedule. But that's a huge help for them that they don't have to play Miami this year in the regular season. So they'd only meet them in the, what's it called?
The ACC title game.
ACC title game. Quinn, you're the best.
I got you, buddy.
Make it easy for me. Hold on. Clemson's schedule is messing with me. But football schedule. Here you go. So Clemson, after they just absolutely trounced NC State 59-35, they lost to Georgia. Who cares about losing to Georgia? What happened to Oregon in that first game? They lost 49-3 in 2022. Oregon had a good season thereafter. I think the next week they put up like 70 points it was. Let me double check that too. Hold on. Yeah, they put up 70 points the week after. So it's nothing that Clemson did that's bad. It's nothing that Oregon did that was bad. It's just that Georgia's probably going to be playing in a national championship game almost year in, year out, unless they coughed it up in the SEC championship game or something like that. But Georgia is typically going to be your juggernaut of college football for the foreseeable future until Kirby Smart decides to leave or not. But following the Georgia game, you amass 3 points as a team, and everybody looks at Dabo Swinney and says, you haven't added a transfer portal player. Your offense sucks. You haven't had a quarterback since Trevor Lawrence. You're booty. We hate you. All of it. You put up 66 on App State. You put up 59 on NC State. And then you get Stanford and Florida State. You absolutely demolished the state of North Carolina. And now you get one of the easiest schedules until you play Louisville. And then you play a Beamer-led South Carolina team at the end of the year. I don't see any hiccups here, guys. I see an undefeated schedule. You're going to play in the ACC championship game. I'll say this out loud. You probably won't be battle-tested, but I don't think you'll have injuries that rack up over time or your body be hurting come the ACC championship time. I think they go undefeated this season. And Georgia was an outlier and not the statement of who Clemson is this season.
I'll respond to that with let's go with 4 points. We'll start with first off. I disagree with your statement. Sorry. I was I muted that whole time, or did I just accidentally mute my mic? All right, cool. I looked down; it was muted. So I disagree with it for just a couple reasons. Firstly, you look at Clemson and that Oregon team. I don't think, in terms of like a positive for Clemson, they're going to be remembered as poorly as that Oregon team because of the 12-team playoff. Like in a hypothetical world, if Clemson can spin off good, successful season, they're going to make the 12-team playoff. They'll be remembered more fondly because of that. Because now we've changed our structure of success in college football and made the playoff bigger. And now if you're one of the 12 teams, people are going to remember you in a positive light. All right. Now for the negatives. One, what I'll say for that Oregon team in that particular instance, you're talking about a first-year coach right at the start of the year playing a coaching staff that knows him in and out in a de facto road game against the best team in football. And that was Georgia in 2022. They just came off winning the national title, and we're about to go back-to-back without losing a single game. All right. Georgia's not the same football team this year as they were in 2022.
True.
My next issue with your statement that has nothing to do with that is you said that Georgia's about to dominate the sport all decade. I don't think that's true. I think the way that Nick Saban dominated college football and the way Kirby Smart was trying to implement dominating at Georgia doesn't work anymore. You can't load your roster with six deep rotating defensive tackles and defensive ends, all 5 stars, and send wave after wave of dudes fresh 24/7 every game. You just can't do that anymore. You don't have the depth. Kirby said that verbatim in his own press conference after Kentucky. Am I saying Georgia's going to drop to one of the not a top 25 team? No. But what I'm saying is they're not going to be the same juggernaut they were or that Alabama in the glory days of Saban was because the secret sauce that makes it work ain't there. So that's one of my biggest differences between Clemson this year, Oregon 2022. And then the last one is I think you're just dodging the fact that they're still going to run into Miami at some point. They're going to lose. So now that's 2 losses on your schedule. And to think that they're just going to hop skip through Louisville, South Carolina, and road tests at Virginia Tech and Pitt. And I know you see Virginia Tech and Pitt and go, they're not as good as Clemson. You're right. Have you ever watched the ACC? Every weekend, a super good team is going on the road to some team that has 2 wins and they lose or get out with their life. And so that's going to happen. And those 2 games look like the games are going to happen in. I just don't see a world where Clemson makes the playoff. I think they're destined to lose at least one more regular season game and then losing the ACC title. And at that point, I don't think a 3-loss ACC team is getting the nod into the playoff. I think the Big 12 is more fondly thought of at this moment than the ACC is because of how bad the ACC's out of conference has been this year.
I want to say talk about one thing that you said, Quinn, about the whole Kirby Smart saying verbatim about the lack of depth, whatever. That was after a terrible performance by his team. He's going to say whatever he can to make it sound better. Now, whether or not I agree with that, I do sort of agree with that, but I'm not going to take necessarily a coach's word after a tough loss for it. But that's beside the point. Clemson, are we, Chase, have you thought about maybe North Carolina State just sucks at football this year? I mean,
No,
have you thought about that?
That's a fact now. We know that one. I'll give you that. NC State does suck.
So beating them 59-35. Granted, NC State put up 21 in the fourth quarter against Clemson's D team or whatever you want to call it. But I still don't think they're that, like, Clemson's that good. Like, I think they're going to lose another game. Now, do I see a scenario where they do pull in Oregon and they do run the table from here on out? I mean, absolutely. I mean, we are talking about Dabo Swinney. He's one of, 3 acting head coaches to have a national championship. Like, we know what he can do, right? And their defense is still really good like it is year over year. And you can see that in the Georgia game, at least in the first, 3 quarters, 2.5 quarters, whatever. This team isn't as loaded as that Oregon team was. Like, you think about the firepower that Oregon team had. There were names on that team that went that people knew, right? The only 2 people really that people outside of Clemson knows that's on Clemson now is Cade Klubnik and Phil Maffa. Now, there may be 1 or 2 defensive players that you may know, but it's not like it used to be where you could name 4 or 5 of their defensive monsters or name, 2, 3, 4 of their offensive monsters, even if you weren't a Clemson fan. That's not the case anymore at Clemson. So that's my concern is where are the superstars at? They're not going to Clemson anymore. I think there is a scenario where they could go undefeated and play Miami in the ACC championship game, and now undefeated from here on out. Obviously, they did lose their first game, but I don't think that's likely. I think that they're notorious for slipping up against a Virginia Tech, a Pitt, somebody like that. And now that Louisville is back being pretty relevant and good, after what happened last year, they could lose that game. So I don't know. I'm interested to see, though, how Dabo Swinney will take these last 2 weeks to kind of propel them forward into the rest of conference play.
I think it's also.
Go ahead.
Okay. I was going to say it's also important to note that we're taking a lot out of an NC State team that we all agree hasn't looked great this year, right? Clemson's coming off a bye, and this is a rivalry game. So, like, there's a lot that went into this as far as why I think they blew them out so badly. I want to see a consistent. Now, if they come out for the next 3 weeks straight, 4 weeks straight, and they're just dominating people, maybe I could start to buy into it a little bit. But you know,
Well, when I'm looking at it, my biggest concern was, and I kind of got on here week one. If you guys watch our videos and you know who I am, you saw week one that I was hating Clemson and thinking that their offense didn't have a heartbeat. And that game showed it. I said Georgia's going to come out and absolutely trounce these guys by like 4 touchdowns. It happened. And then these next 2 weeks, all of a sudden, Clemson can put up 50 points. They can put up 60 points.
As long as they can run the ball, yes. They're not going to put
Well,
up points throwing with Cade Klubnik.
Well, we're over here talking about Tennessee throwing up 60 on NC State, and I was like, oh my gosh, like Tennessee's offense is amazing, in which they are. Don't get me wrong, but is Clemson's offense also near the same level because of them being able to do some of the same things? They're putting up points. That's something that in the past we haven't seen a lot of Clemson teams do post Trevor Lawrence, Deshaun Watson eras. So that's something that I was looking at, that like, hey, the offense has a heartbeat. It is there. And the schedule, yeah, they're gonna play some tight games with these ACC conference opponents, but Louisville and South Carolina are my 2 main worries. Florida State just beat Cal 14-9. Stanford, I think they just got their first ACC win. I can't remember against who, but you got Wake Forest, Virginia. Syracuse. There you go. Oh, yes. Our sad Kyle McCord, Ohio State. Anyway, but Clemson, they can run the table and they can be healthy going into an ACC championship game. So, and then at that point, guys, let's take this here, remember it, and at the end of the year, we might have to have a discussion and asking, is Dabo Swinney back if he does this? Anyway, that's all we're going to have for this overreaction. Clemson being the 2022 Oregon, having a good rest of their season, going undefeated. Let us know what you guys think. As always, we're sponsored by SeatGeek. Use code 3BoldTakes, as always, to get $20 off your first ticket purchase. We love them. We use them. Make sure you do too. Freddie, Chase, and Quinn, 3 Bold Takes. We're out.